Ever wonder how many resources actually go into a champion training event? Because I did. There's 2 different entry-level methods to handling a champion training. Method number 1 is the tavern. Obviously, you can go in, use your brews, use all your champions, level them up, and do all those things. That'll get you points. Number 2 is going through pain. Obviously, the bread and butter of leveling up your champs, especially when you're first getting started, or if you don't have the other resources available. It really just comes down to how many resources you have and where your account is at. Again, we're at all different levels, right? Some of us are late game, end game, been here for freaking ever, have all the resources in the world. You watch these content creators that have thousands of brews. I have a bit, not at thousands for each individual one, but a bit. You use all your brews or all your silver or all your champions, and then you're out again by the next one that's coming up soon. So it really just comes down to where your account is at and which method you want to use. So we've the tavern and then we've got the campaigns. That's kind of like where if you were to put them in 2 buckets, 2 methods, that's where we're at. Or of course, you can do a mix of the 2, including all the other little nitty-gritty tips and tricks that you can utilize as well. The real point of this video is to figure out how many resources are actually utilized in these different methods, and also so that you, as the player, regardless of which stage of the game you're in, you can go through and decide which method is best for you based on how many resources you have, how much time you have. I want to start this off by showing off my resources and where we're at. And then of course, the actual champion training events. I do have a little bit, don't judge me for it, but our goal is to either get to this guy or this guy. We're going to kind of see where we're at. Also, other resources that I want to note and track during this video is the silver. In the tavern, we do need to look at all of my brews. I have roughly 300, 500 for each, and then also mystery shards. This is important too, 776. Again, I'll go over all of it in a second, but that's our starting. There's where we're at and all of the different resources that we have. Hold up, click link in the description right now to get Uugo for free, as well as 2 more amazing epics as you level up. Here are the exact steps you need to follow. Log out of Plarium Play on PC and uninstall. Click link in the description and register with a brand new email. Launch raid and complete the tutorial. Go to your inbox and claim your first champ. Here you go, you find Uugo here, as well as Tagoar and Rector Drath as you progress through the game. Then use promo code SUPREME6 to get yourself an insane Void Legendary, Supreme Galek. This is an amazing account start in Raid, so go ahead and click my link right now and follow the steps. Alright, so let's go through each method and what you need for each so that you can then decide which method is best for you. Method number 1 is the tavern. Now, what you need in order to accomplish this method is you need the brews, you need shards, and you need silver. Sometimes a lot of all 3. Main point of this video is to show off what resources and how many resources are used for each method. So what we're going to do is we're going to level up all of our champions and upgrade them, but with that caveat of you want to even level up your food champion. For instance, your 3 stars, you want to make sure they actually already have a brew or 2 in. For me in 3 stars, I actually only use 1 brew. Some do 2. I like to just do 1, especially because I don't have thousands of brews. So I like to just do 1. So I'll go through and I'll add 1 brew to each 3 star. I don't like to add brews to 2 stars or 1 stars. I start at 3. And again, everyone's different. This is just how I've done it and what I found works best for me and my account and the resources that I have available. And if someone comments and says you have a lot of brews, you probably could do more than that. Hey, let me live my life. Okay, so what I'll go through and do 1 brew per 3s. Then if we switch over to 4s, what I often do, I'll add two brews, and then I'll also add 1 1-star champion. And the reason why is because it puts me over the top from 14 to 15. You'll use a lot of 1-star champions to either put them up or just to level them up in general. Again, a really good point to make here, and this is again after reading tons and tons of comments of other people and other videos, it still is a little bit confusing on why you want to add brews to champions that you're just going to use as fodder. You're just giving them up, you're sacrificing them. What's the point? I get points, that's the point. Whenever you level them up at all, regardless of if they get fed as food or not, you get points both in CVC, which again, you don't always have CVC going on, but in the champion training event. You notice just from doing those few, I was able to go from right here to right here. Super, super simple, and I only like barely tipped the iceberg, right? That sounds really not good. Just pretend I didn't say it that way. And then 5 stars. So 3 stars, I like to give 1 brew. 4, I like to give 2 plus 1 1-star champion. And then 5 stars, I don't know if I have a good example for here. So I'm just going to use Alice because I haven't leveled her up yet. Don't yell at me for that. I know. I don't even know how good Alice is. I haven't even researched her yet. Someone's going to yell at me in the comments. I just know it. It's fine. I accept. What I'll do for 5 stars is I'll usually add, if I'm feeding them, I'm not going to feed Alice. Don't worry. But if I was feeding her, I would add 3 brews. And then I would also add 1 more 1-star champion. Again, because it takes it over from 17 to 18. Some people I've seen will do 4 brews for a 5-star champion. Some will do 5 brews. And I've even seen some people comment that they like 8. Let's see where that gets you to level 28, like just barely. So that's good. Again, this really depends on how many brews you have, how many resources you have in your account. Like if you're a free-to-play player, if you're a brand new player, you're not going to have a whole lot of brews. Or if you just had an event that just went on and you kind of used up a lot of those resources, you're not going to have a whole lot of that. I'm a saver. That's how I like to play the game. I love to save my resources as much as possible so that I can use them for CVCs, for fusions, and for content. So I like to save a lot of my resources, which means in general, unless I'm like, you know, being a little extra, which sometimes I am, let's be honest, I'm an extra kind of person, I will do 3 brews for my 5 stars plus 1 1-star. Put her over to 18. And then of course I would then proceed to feed her to another champion, which I am not to do. Don't yell at me, I'm not doing it. And there's different ways of doing this, different levels of effectiveness. And one thing I really wanted to note here is there's no one right. There's really not, because everybody's account is different. Everybody has a different amount of resources and everybody is in a different place, whether that's they just did a fusion and somebody else didn't, so they've been able to save up brews for longer, whether they are trigger happy and they like to use their brews whenever the freak they get them. It's fine, you do you. Everyone's in a different place, at a different account status, if you will. Final note that I think that I skipped over is for 1 and 2 stars. So 1 stars, what I'll do is every day we have our dailies, right? And it tells you every single day to go and level up a champion, increase a champion's level in the tavern 3 times. What I do every day when I have that daily, I go in and I take a 1-star and I add 3 1-stars to it. It gets you over the 3 level limit, so you get your daily done. And what I'll do is I'll save that, and then what I do during a champion training or a CVC is I'll go in and I will add 1 brew to them, and that'll get them to level 10. So for 1-stars, you want to use 1 brew and 3 1-star champions, or you can do what I do during your dailies. You go and level them up to level 4, and then you upgrade them out. Another note I wanted to make is that I don't usually jump around this much. What I usually do is I start with my 1s, go through all my 1s, right, with the amount of brews and the amount of champions that we need. And then I'll go to my number 2s and I'll upgrade all of those and I'll add 1 brew so that they're ready to be 3-star leveled up. Does that make sense? And then I'll go through all my 4s and then my 5s. Another resource that I had mentioned earlier is mystery shards. As you're upgrading all these champions, you're going to be using a lot of the 1-star champions. So then you're going to be using a lot of mystery shards as well. One thing I do want to note is for my clan quest, oh, that was such good timing. You don't even know. One thing I want to know is that for my clan quest this week, I actually said I'd pull 20 rares from mystery shards. Look at that. Summon 20 rare champions from mystery shards. I just pulled 2 in 1 run. I do want to note something that I also saw in a lot of comments, and there were a lot of people asking where to get more brews. You can get more brews from clan bosses, from your reward chests. It actually helps you replenish it pretty quickly too, especially as you start to get the higher chests. Other places you can get more brews is through your different event rewards. Sometimes they're found there, but also through the bazaar, which is your tag team arena shop. There's XP brews right here. And also another place you can find them is sometimes in the clan shop. They'll have them available here. Okay, the second method to clean champion training is obviously through campaigns. This is the bread and butter, right? This is where we level up a lot of our champions so that we can go to the tavern and upgrade them. What you want to do first and foremost is understand the resources that this is going to get. It's first going to take a lot of energy, depending on how much you need, but it'll take quite a bit of energy, or gems so that you can replenish the energy. You're going to need a lot of multi-battles or RSL helper, but I'll come back to RSL helper in a second. First, what you're going to do is you're going to either do stage 12-3 or stage 12-6. It really just depends on where you're at in your account. But if you're further along with your account, you're going to go to Nightmare. But generally, let's just for the sake of things, we're going to use Brutal. But I do have a couple of like little tips and tricks that I wanted to give here. You can actually level these champions to the level 9. So like, let's say you're doing 1-stars. I don't usually do 1-stars in campaign, like ever. Or level 2 champions, you want to level up to level 19. And then what you can do is you can either take them to the tavern and add 1-star to them, or maybe 2. I think it's just 1 though. Or what you can do is you can take them to the Guardian Ring and level them up just that 1 more level. It shouldn't take too much time, and also that's not using a resource. The reason why is because sometimes you'll kind of in a way be wasting some of your energy by trying to level up a 19 to a 20, a 2-star to 9 to 20, because they don't need that much more. Sometimes it's actually simpler to the sparring ring and just have them level up that way, or just adding your 1-stars if you have a lot of mystery shards to spare for that one. This especially applies to like free to play players and players who are brand new you, but there's just a couple of tips and tricks if you want to try to save and be, you know, as stingy on your resources as possible to make it go as far as possible. There's a couple of things you can do. For campaigns, some champions that you can use. I personally use Ray, but I didn't always. And of course, if you don't have her, you're not going to use her. But some champions that you can use that are very, very quick and can get through them very efficiently. For instance, Ray does 8 seconds. Before Ray, I used to use Fellhound. I used to use Fellhound, and he was a 7-second runner. He was pretty fast too, and I believe he's a rare. So if that's an option that you have, if you have Fellhound, that'd be great. Here's a couple of others that I've heard other people use. You can use Herndig, Wukong, Visix. She's okay. I heard she can be a bit slow. Baron and Belor, those are great. Belor, like rare. Skull Crown. There's plenty of different champions that you can use for a campaign farmer, but those are the ones that I've seen other people use. If you're brand new to raid, you're probably going to use someone like Kale. That said, he's not going to be your typical 5 to 7 second runner, which is generally as fast as you want your campaigns to potentially be. Another quick tip that I think that I found interesting that I sometimes use, but I wish that I used more, is using your dungeons, especially when you're doing dungeon event, to level up your champions too. So like for instance, I have an ice golem. Normally if I'm doing like ice golem runs or trying to do an event, I have 2 extra slots where I can put in food champions to level them up. This really depends on where you're at on your account, again, because you have to be able to have a strong enough team to handle it. Another note I want to make too though is that when you're upgrading your champions, whether that's through your daily quests that you have to do like 7 campaigns every day, or the 3 boss campaigns every day, or if you're doing an event like Spider, Dragon, you know, all these guys, Ice Golem, you can level up your champions but save them. Don't use them until you're going to use them for either a champion training event or CVC. Usually I save them for CVC, but right now I saved them up for this champion training event for the Fusion. All right, real quick, if you're doing the campaign method to try to level up your champions during a champion training event, like I mentioned, you're either going to need a bunch of energy or gems, and then also you're going to need a bunch of multi-battle available, or you can use this tool called RSL Helper. Freaking love this tool. It's super, super great and handy. You can actually go in and put in which food, which champions you want to set so that as they're leveling up and if they get max level, it'll automatically go in and switch them out with whoever you've set up as your food champions. You can also make it so it auto sells your items, and that way you don't have to go in and clear out your artifacts afterwards. RSL Helper is free to use and it's a freaking awesome tool. I've used it for quite a while. I don't always have to use it. It's one of those tools I pull out as needed, if that makes sense. Like when I run out of multi-battles, which happens almost every single time in CVC, no matter how many I save in my inbox, or if I'm trying to use it for CVC when I'm doing the Forge. There's so many different ways that you can use RSL Helper, but one of them is in campaign. If you're running it and out of the multi-battles, this is a great one to run. All right, so now we've kind of gone over the 2 methods that you can use, either the tavern or the campaign, but of course you can do a mix of both. Obviously, you will likely end up using both. The real point of me showing these different methods is to show which one you're using more of your resources on. The biggest point I want to drive home, regardless of which method you decide to use, is to take a step back and realize where you're at. What is the biggest resources that you have available and where are you lacking? Do you have a lot of energy and a lot of multi-battles? Do you have the help of RSL Helper if you're on a PC? Or do you have a crap ton of brews and mystery shards and silver? It really just depends on where you're at in your account. Resources really make it a point to decide which method of these to use, or which mix of methods. Is it mostly campaign and then you're just grading in the tavern? Or some people can go through and finish an entire champion training event just from the tavern alone. They don't even have to jump in, use any energy, and do any camp runs. So it really just depends on where you're at and also what events are coming up, because I think that I've made a couple of mistakes in the past where I'll use all the resources that I have for one event, not realizing that I have another one coming up. Perfect example here is that if I use a lot of my silver in the tavern, again, not a resource I think we realize goes so much into champion training events, but if I use a lot of my silver during the champion training event, I have an artifact event coming up soon I'm gonna be struggling with. So that's a good point to keep in mind with how much I'm using the tavern versus the campaign and which resources I have to kind of mix and match which method is best for me and my account and where I'm at. All right, I am checking in real quick, show the progress of where we're at. I still have one more item that I can get from doing this champion training. I have not gone and done any campaign runs aside from what I showed earlier. This entire time to go from where we basically started to where we are, I used the tavern. I did quite a bit of upgrading, leveling up, as you can see from my brews. Still have a ton of these freaking voids though, but we did use hundreds and hundreds of brews. But well, also we did use a bunch of mystery shards, but I wanted to use as many mystery shards as possible for my clan quest that I mentioned that I have. That said, we've only used the tavern. We haven't really done any campaign really, and we were able to get all but the very last reward. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm really tempted to just go run some campaign for a while. So this is where we're at. I'm going to finish this off with some campaigns real quick, just so we can have the satisfaction of knocking that off. I'll be right back. We got the whole thing. Mind you, it did not have to go further than this little fusion guy, but we did it just to do it. Plus CVC's going on, so why not? Here are the results. I went through and I calculated all of the resources that we used. Hopefully I didn't miss anything, but here's what we came down to. We used a total of 4 million silver, which really isn't that bad considering how much we have. But I do know that if you are lower on silver, free to play, if you just recently used it all up a bunch because of a gear enhancement, then yeah, 4 million can add up. Not to mention I could have done a whole lot more from that, but it didn't actually use as much silver as I thought it would. So that's interesting. 4 million silver. We used about half of our brews. I wanted to be able to save some for the next champion training as well, so I'm glad we were able to save some of those. Mystery shards, we used a total of 448. Again, I wanted to go through as many of those as possible because of my clan quest that I took on. I usually don't take these ones, but I did. And even with, oh my gosh, that's a really good thing to note too. I used 448 total mystery shards, and I only got 9 out of 20. I'm not finishing this. It's not happening. Note to self, never take that clan quest ever freaking again. Gems, we only used a total of 80, I believe, around 80. So that's not too bad. I was able to use some of my energy from other places while I was doing the campaigns, like from the bazaar. I also used some of my clan shop energy. So we could have used more gems, but it wasn't too bad. And then total, not only did we finish the champion training results, but then total for the CVC that's going on, we gained 39,000, a little over 39,000 points. That said, I feel like this was really interesting to learn how many resources actually get taken up from the champion training events. And again, I want to note that I was able to save a lot in a lot of different areas because I use so much of the tavern. So that said, where's your account at? Which method do you think is best for you based off of the resources and things that you have? Do you think that using more of the campaign or the tavern is better for you? And also, if you have any tips for any people who are new that can maybe help them and they'll just eat up, that would be great, especially if it wasn't mentioned here, because I'd love to hear it too so that I could do better as well. Thank you so much for watching. Have an amazing day. Keep killing it. And I'll see you.